everyone. Happy Sunday. It's Alysia and I'm very excited to be with you for our bi-weekly Sunday Investor Global Online Fireside Chat. We're broadcasting to you live from the exquisite Mediterranean island of Malta. So apologies today if our internet's not 100% perfect. We're here with Ariadne Capital's Julie Meyer, MBE, at the Malta Follow the Entrepreneur and Investor Summit. Our meetings with investors and entrepreneurs around the continent continue to be incredibly fruitful and will continue to champion our community across Europe. I can't tell you how brilliantly our community continues to be received wherever we go, so be proud. Once again today, we have an amazing session planned for you. We have a panel of brilliant investors joining us from across the globe, logging in to help you understand the importance of transitioning from founder to leader when growing and scaling your entrepreneurial venture. As an entrepreneur, scaling your business is often very scary, and leading your team is one of the most critical components to success. The question is, how do you make sure that your people remain your greatest asset as you continue to grow and scale? Now I've got you all excited. Let me go ahead and introduce you to our VIP guests before asking them to properly introduce themselves to you. So let me welcome Cape Town-based Sean Conde, who's a mathematician, technologist, serial entrepreneur, and global connector. Welcome to London, UK-based Jude Addo, who's a career banker, investor, entrepreneur, and orator. San Francisco, USA-based Jody Schiller, who's an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, consultant, essayist, and digital marketing expert. London, UK-based Sanjay Choudhary, who's a startup enthusiast, angel investor, and entrepreneur. And last but definitely not least, Hong Kong-based Anirban Lahiri, who's an entrepreneur, banker, strategist, and medical evangelist. Now we'd love to ask each of our VIPs to introduce themselves to you, starting with Sanjay. Sanjay, please say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's Sanjay from London, and it's great to be on this show. And thanks, Alysia, to inviting me. I am based here in London, and I'm working with startups, both in terms of investments as well as working in a community of startups to help them grow their business. I'm absolutely over the moon in terms of how this startup ecosystem is building up both in the West as well as in the East. And I'm here to contribute whatever little I can from my experience to help the other startup grow to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Very excited to joining us. Anirban, say hi, please.
Hi, everybody. This is Anirban. I am based in Hong Kong and Vietnam most of the time. I am the founder of Medisetter.com, which is an online community connecting medical institutions and facilities with patients in need of medical care. We have a strong focus on the developing world, particularly markets with underdeveloped healthcare infrastructure, and we're all about improving access and transparency. I personally am very passionate about emerging and frontier markets and about healthcare in particular, and I'd like to see how we can use information technology to bridge voids in terms of healthcare access, particularly in the emerging world.
Very excited you're joining us. Thank you, Anirban. Jody, say hi from San Francisco.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me, Alysia. It's an honor to be here with all these very interesting people from around the world. So my company, New Reality Arts, what we do is we use augmented reality and virtual reality to create new kinds of marketing experiences that engage people in new ways and also that can gather a far deeper level of metrics and measurements on each individual person. So in addition to, and if you don't know what augmented reality is, basically the layering of the digital or the virtual on top of the real. And in September, Apple is going to launch its R Kit, which is this augmented reality application kit, which means that as of September, 100 million people are going to be able to have these augmented reality experiences. So we think it's time for brands to start getting ready for that explosion.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Very excited you're joining us. Thank you, Jody. Dude, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, happy to. Thank you very much, Alysia, for this invite. I'm truly honored to share a stage with these phenomenal people from around the world. My name is Jude Addo, originally Ghanaian, but spent the past 10 odd years in the West, first in the US and then in the UK. I'm a career banker. I started off my career at JP Morgan, where I did corporate and investment banking and financial markets. And I recently got hired by Standard Chartered Bank as a director doing transaction banking in emerging markets. That's supply chain finance, around Asia, Middle East, and Africa. I'm acutely passionate about Africa, and that led me and a few partners of mine to start up a private investment club called Cornerstone, and we essentially back underserved markets, which are the frontier markets of mainly Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, to be precise. So I'm happy to share whatever experience that I have in my few years in venture capital and private equity, as well as any other experience I can draw on from my years of authoring and running different businesses across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. We've got a huge community of entrepreneurs in Ghana, so we're very excited you joining us. And definitely, last but not least, Sean, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, guys. Sean. I live in Cape Town. So if any of you want to come visit, my door is always open. I focus potentially on, exclusively on emerging markets. So for the last 10 years, and I think Jude and I are probably closest to this, is how to do business in Africa. India is a different market, Africa is a different market, every territory in Africa is different from a regulatory environment, from it just carries on and on and on. And we just keep it busy.
Thank you, Sean.
So,
let's move.
Wait,
Sorry, we've just... Sean, we've got 1,000 questions. We've got entrepreneurs around the world, so just bear with us. We'll definitely come back to you. I know we want to jump into our questions and we want to learn from the best, but before we jump into our questions, some very important shout outs. On the screen are contact details for our VIP guests. As Sean just said, feel free to reach out to them. I know they want to hear from you. You can keep sending your questions through to inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com, and we'll do our very best to include them. I know there are thousands of questions for today's session, so we will do our best to include them. Just a reminder, we have community champions in ever-growing meetup groups in over 80 cities in 55 countries around the globe, including in North and South America, the UK, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, India, Asia, and Australia. Unfortunately, the list is too long, so I'm not going to go through all of them today. If you'd like to meet up with one of your local chapter chairs, or you'd like to start your own, feel free to reach out to us via email, and we'll put you in contact with our local community champion. On that note, I know I say this twice a week, but I can't say it enough. Thank you to our volunteer champions from around the globe. You are the heart and soul of our community, and we wouldn't be here today without you. Over the next few months, with all your help, our aim is to inspire and empower entrepreneurs in more than 100 countries, and we know that together with all your help, we can make this happen. Thank you to all our VIP guests for sharing your knowledge and wisdom so generously with us today. We are in your debt. Thank you to our growing family of supporters and collaborators from around the developing world for once again hosting sessions for hundreds of entrepreneurs who don't have access to necessary bandwidth or understanding of the English language to join our sessions on their own. Thank you to all the presidents, prime ministers, ambassadors, government ministries, UN offices, US embassy corners, British council offices, university campuses, schools, business incubators, chamber of commerce, community centers, community radio stations, and media for all your weekly hosting support and for raising awareness within your regions and communities. Thank you to everyone from our UN Women team for all your support as well. We're once again streaming across new live platforms today, and we have some very big, exciting news on that front, so stay tuned. You are here to learn, and that's exactly what you're going to be doing. Let's make our VIP guests comfortable. Just to let them know how it works, we're going to pose a question to one of them. It goes to all of you. Please go ahead and answer it and have fun. So everybody, our first panelist who's going to answer a question today is Anirban. I hope you're ready. So here goes.
I'm ready.
Let's do this. In your opinion, how would you define a leader when it comes to building a big business?
I think a leader is somebody who is willing to empower his team or her team. And what that means is the biggest challenge when somebody starts a business is Michael, you vested your potentially your life's savings, or your in some cases betting the farm. And so there's a tendency to want to control everything. And the biggest challenge when somebody is moving from being a garage startup to actually scaling up their business is in fact precisely letting go of that tendency or that instinct to control everything. So I think the biggest step really in moving from a startup founder to a business builder or a leader essentially is empowering people rather than micromanaging every aspect of the business.
Great way to start today's session. Jody, you're in the home of tech. Any insights you'd like to share in terms of what Anirban was saying?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. We were talking about how would you define a leader when it comes to building and growing a successful business?
Yeah, so in my business, which is this very emerging and cutting edge tech, I think a lot of what I'm doing as a leader right now is looking for the market, is looking for where the need is looking to figure out how can I reach out, how can I basically right now, I think we're at a stage in our industry in augmented and virtual reality where we've got this tech and then we've got the rest of the world. We've got this kind of unusual sort of forward-thinking tech that I think a lot of people just don't even understand. So our job is then how do we connect our technology to the rest of the world? And so right now, my job, I think, as an entrepreneur is to be thinking, how can I be the brand whisperer? How can I translate Silicon Valley and sort of this technology into something that actually directly impacts the bottom line of my customers? And so in that regard, we've developed experiences that gather data that not only engage people and affiliate them with your brand, but also can give you the kind of data that can help you drive more targeted ad campaigns all down the line. And that was sort of like just us innovating and thinking, okay, let's get more and more specific about how we can meet the brand's needs. And so that I think is sort of, at least at where we are as an industry, that I feel like is kind of my big job right now, is translating the technology into a useful application for the rest of the world.
Thank you, Jody. And I know we've all experienced this. How do you take really cool tech and actually explain it to the rest of the world? So thank you for bringing that to our community's attention. Sanjay, you've had a lot of experience in this regard. Any thoughts you'd like to share here?
So I think I will just add to what Anirban already said, is especially when the founders who actually put everything at stake to start a business, and I think they become very uncomfortable, especially delegating. And I think empowering your team is absolutely a necessity if you want to really scale the business. And I think that's where it sometimes goes wrong, that people are too close to everything, whether in terms of finances or whether in terms of delegating any responsibility, because they don't want anything to go wrong. But there is so much you can do in a day. So I think you need to start trusting and empowering your team. And I think that is one of the primary reason that why a startup will succeed. So I think I would echo the same thoughts for sure.
Thank you, Sanjay. And this next question goes to Sean, based on what your co-panelists have been saying. Like, you've been an entrepreneur forever, very successful entrepreneur. Based on your experience, what are some of the characteristics that you believe a good leader needs to show their team when it comes to keeping them motivated whilst constantly growing the business?
Alysia, thank you. Difficult question.
Always, Sean, always.
It's very simple. Well, it's not simple. To grow a business, okay, so you need to think. So you need to put your lieutenants in play that you trust with your business. So first of all, put the lieutenants in place that you can say, thank you very much, send me an income statement, send me a balance sheet once a month, cool, the business is in play. So what does that do for you? It does one thing. It allows you to think, okay, which is leadership. So you put the lieutenants in place, you stop thinking like a founder, like everyone else said, and putting and trying to control everything. You let it go. And I agree with everyone else that's just spoken, 100%. As soon as you let go, it allows you to do more. And that is the simplest way of thinking about it. Let go allows you to do more. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to make some mistakes down the road. Doing it. but that's the cost of doing business.
So Jude, you've been a young entrepreneur multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the question. I tend to agree with what everybody has said. I take a bit of a slightly different approach when I think of leadership, and I'd like to backtrack to your original question in terms of what defines a leader in building a successful business. I think when you think of the term leader, we need to actually dissect it. When you say a leader, what makes a leader a leader? I think first and foremost, a leader is someone who has followers, right? And and I've heard a great saying, if you think you're a leader yet no one's following you, then you're just going on a very long walk. A very lonely walk at that as well. So I think first and foremost, the thing that a leader needs to have is the ability to invoke inspiration, how to inspire those that are, as Sean rightly said, his or her lieutenants, people who would actually do the groundwork and the heavy lifting on your behalf. I think a leader definitely needs to have followers and needs to be able to invoke that inspiration that will get people gingered up enough and believe in the vision and follow you. And that's how to build a successful business. But number two, I think this is also a parallel point, but just as strong. I think a leader must be a follower first. And what do I mean by that? I mean, for moving from co-founder to leader, it is important not to forget that you also must be a learner. And although you might be leading a team of very intelligent people, is very critical that you don't have any delusions of grandeur, so to speak. So you should be able to learn from those who you're leading. That's A. But B, also I advocate getting a mentor. I treat my career as sort of as a company, and as an individual I treat my career as a company. So for example, I have a board of advisors or a board of directors for my career, different people from different backgrounds who feed into me and who can actually give me guidance from very different perspectives in order to take my career and my business to the next level. And I'll stop at that to hear from others as well.
Thank you, Jude. So on that note, Jody, I have a question for you. Jude spoke like
Alysia,
very.
Sorry, can I interject quickly?
Sure, Sean, go for it.
And I believe everything you just said, but there's one key point that hasn't been brought up. Okay, is always surround yourself with people brighter than yourself.
Absolutely. And funny enough, I was just about to ask Jody that question. So Jody, this next question goes to you, and that's why I love hosting these sessions. So Jude spoke about being a learner, inspiring your team, but ultimately, as you said, you got to find those strong mentors. You got to keep growing in that. And as Sean said, you surround yourself with the very best. Jody, what do you do to ensure that you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
Yeah, so I call it hacking myself. I'm always hacking myself. I feel like sort of kind of one of the keys to being a good leader is knowing where you're weak. It's really important to know what am I good at and what am I weak at, and sort of put aside whatever ego you can put aside and just look really with like the most honest eye you can say, well, I am good at that. And boy, no one should ever trust me with that. No one should just ever give me that responsibility. And then using that as sort of my blueprint, then I can sort of go out and say, okay, well, here's my weakness, and here I'm going to find this brilliant person to fill in for this gap, or this brilliant person to fill in for that gap. And actually I'm not sure if this is like a woman in tech, but one of my biggest problems is that I often totally forget about myself. I'm balancing everybody else's needs, my employees, my customers, and I will completely forget about my own needs or my own self. So one of the ways I've done to hack that is that I now have a call with an advisor, just a 10-minute call every morning, just to ground me in remember, you have to think about you first before you think about everybody else. So that's been really helpful in that regard. And then I agree with everybody else as well. I think that it's really important to have, I feel like it's pretty obvious when you find someone who is excellent. Right? Excellence is not it's not a common thing. And so when you find an employee who is excellent, who is just so far above the rest, those are the people I value the most and try to bring around me, because they create climates wherever they go, right? When you have someone who is just the best and the brightest, they can change the world. So those are the kind of people I like to have around me. They can be challenging to manage because of, I think being that bright or that gifted often comes with a price in the world. And so I've noticed that, like, as I'm working with these very bright and gifted and creative people, that there's a lot of sort of other stuff that we have to deal with as well to kind of get the best out of them. But when we get it all working together, when everybody is on the same page with the vision, and one of the things I like to do to inspire the people I'm working with is just, I just say to them, like, let's just do this better than we possibly ever thought we could before. Like, and for the right people, that's enough, right? This idea that I'm going to break every freaking boundary that there has been and do this better than has ever been done before. Like, I found that really works well with the right people to motivate them. Like, let's push this harder. Hey, let's see if we can even go farther with this. That's my best technique for managing really gifted people.
Well, Jody, I have to compliment you, because if we have any entrepreneurs that are looking to move to Silicon Valley, you basically just summed up life in Silicon Valley in a couple of minutes. So thank you. That is what it's like, everybody, to live in Silicon Valley. Anirban, any thoughts you want to add to what Jody was saying?
Yeah, I think several people, several of my I guess fellow panelists touched upon I guess tangentially upon one of the most important things, which is looking within yourself, and also when it comes to managing highly talented, perhaps even temperamental employees. One of the most important things that I've learned, and I've actually learned this lesson the hard way, to be honest, is you've got to have the right temperament to be a leader. And one of the things that I've noticed that gets people really behind you and gets your team to really look at you as a leader is when you can keep your cool in the most difficult of situations. Medisetter.com deals with some very, very serious medical cases as well. We have people who've got cancer, terminal illness coming through our system. And therefore, the margin is quite low, quite thin, really. And so there are situations where, at the end of the day, there could be errors and mistakes, or people do so. At the end of the day, nobody's really infallible. The point really is, how do you actually deal with situations where mistakes have been made, and how do you actually keep your cool as a leader, rather of finding scapegoats, right? So I think the ability to assume responsibility for whatever has gone wrong, even though you as a leader were not directly involved, is one of the most important attributes of a leader. And then keeping cool temper and looking for solutions rather than scapegoating and finger pointing is one of the other attributes that I think that makes your people really respect you and rally around you.
Very, very, very well said, Anirban. And Sanjay, this question goes to, just based on what Anirban was saying, that this idea of temperament is critical. And I know we often talk about the characteristics in terms of building confidence, being trustworthy, but it extends a lot further, as he was saying. We go through some very challenging times when building businesses and that, and you have to sacrifice a lot as a leader for the sake of your team. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to add here?
I think, again, we are all talking about the same thing. It's the temperament, it's the attitude of an individual. From my perspective, I only say one thing, is leading by example, and which is primarily to go with any situation. I think whenever somebody will look you as a leader, when they will respect you, and respect is earned. Respect is not because you are in a position. There would be employees who will genuinely respect you and look up to you as a leader when you do things by leading by example. So in any situation, good, bad, ugly, you have to stand tall. If things go wrong, like Anirban said, you have to take responsibility. End of the day, if your team does not perform, you are at fault more than the team. Because if you are not able to get the best out of the team, it's the first fault is yours, not team. And I think if that's the attitude a leader have, people will look up to them. And that's what would be a differentiator between almost like a stepping stone for a founder to become a true leader. And I think leading by example is absolutely critical.
Thank you, Sanjay. I actually was about to ask you a question, Sean, because 15 years ago, we were in an interaction with someone and I turned around to you and said, that person just ignores me. And you turned around to me and said, if you want global business leaders' respect, you have to go out and earn it. I'd love for you to give an example to our community in terms of exactly what Sanjay's been talking about, Anirban, about earning respect, a situation you may have been in where people may not necessarily, or your team may not have necessarily looked up to in the way you wanted to, but ultimately you earned their respect and you drove the business forward. It's a hard question, Sean, go for it.
You're asking me the difficult questions, as always. I was listening to Sanjay and I was actually just thinking back. So one of the managing directors of one of my companies, okay, none of you will guess where I found him. Okay. I found him in a bar as a barman. And I watched him for months and months and months and months.
Wow.
This is about 12 years ago. He's now running one of my very successful companies. And all I noticed was he paid attention to detail. So I agree with Sanjay. You know what? You give people scope to deliver whatever you require. Give them freedom. If you don't give them freedom, if you as a founder or an owner or whatever, if you're trying to control this, you're going to constrict them. Let them make their own mistakes. So there's an old hyperbole. There are multiple ways to get from A to B. Okay, so Alysia and I will go from A to B in one way. Sanjay will go from A to B in another way, and so as it goes on. As long as you get from A to B, no one cares. As long as you get to B, it's the nature of leadership is let it go, because they can take care of it for you. So, and I know Alysia wants to sum up at some point. But I always have one key thing, okay? While I'm sleeping, am I making money, yes or no?
Said like a true investor, Sean. Jody, following up from what Sean was saying. So you have access to some of, as you said, some of the smartest, most ambitious, most driven young people in the world in Silicon Valley. There's a ton of competition. When you're faced with two equally qualified candidates, how do you ultimately determine who to hire and, as Sean said, who's going to be the one that adds all that value to your business?
Well, I think the first part is I don't think of it as this is the final decision, because in a startup environment, just move forward, right? Like just move forward. So if I have two people and they both seem qualified in different ways, and I guess let's say they're qualified in the fairly similar way. I guess the first thing I would want to know is how willing are you to commit to staying at the startup? Because one of the big issues with startups in the Bay Area, it's sort of like, I guess, this dating problem. There's all this excitement. There's all this vision. There's just this potential to jump from business to business to business to business, right? Oh, that looks cool over there. So one of the things I'm looking for, especially now, is finding someone who says, okay, I'm going to sit and stay with your business for a while. This sounds like exactly what I want to do. It's really, I think that's kind of, in Silicon Valley at least, I don't know if that's a problem in the rest of the world, but in Silicon Valley, where you've got all these juicy ideas and exciting notions and we're on the forefront of everything, it's just really hard to say to someone, okay, now can you commit here for at least a year? Can you just commit for a year? It's crazy actually how hard that can be. So
Jody, to answer your question, we call millennials and we're taking over the planet, so I'm sorry. Do you have any thoughts in terms of what Jody was saying and how to help manage all these young, ambitious, global game changers?
It's a difficult one to answer because in some ways I'm considered a millennial myself. But it's funny when Jody was talking about managing difficult people. My boss at the bank in London, Standard Chartered Bank, once told me that I've gone feedback on you. You're excellent, but you're difficult to manage. So following Jody's comments, I think I'll take that as a compliment going forward. But I think, generally speaking, I think there is a paradigm shift, especially when you look at the millennial generation. They're a generation that don't tend to stay with one company for a really long time, or aren't loyalists, so to speak, like how our parents' generation and the previous generation were before that. They don't just stick around and look for that handsome defined benefit pension. Generation is looking for something that they truly believe in, and that I think as leaders to give them that believability in the things that we are aspiring to create or co-create in terms of business, in terms of technology, in terms of enterprise, even in terms of investments. And I think it's that sort of storytelling and the believability in that storytelling around the things that get us moving, the things that give us purpose. I think that's really how you're going to engage the up and coming class of millennials who are incredibly intelligent, but a bit difficult to manage.
Hi, Alysia. I would like to add I would like to add something. So from my perspective, Jude, what you said is, millennials tend to switch jobs, or more often it's very difficult to retain. I think it's not completely true. Yes, back in the days we have less opportunities. Now we have ample amount of opportunities. So many opportunities exist. Now it also depends on the company's culture. Attrition, if there's an attrition happening in the company, there's something wrong with the culture. I think the responsibility of retain some good people in the company is company's responsibility. So I actually take the onus, if I'm employing somebody, to that he's connected with the brand he's working with the company, with the people he's working with, he or she's working with. And I think it is our responsibility. If they go, I think we have not done something right. So I think for example, I've got employees, even if they get double the salary from other people, I know they will not go. I have so much confidence. So I think it is the culture which we prevail in the company, which can let the people to stick with you for longer. Yes, I agree. There are more opportunities, so people tend to shift more often.
Sanjay, I totally agree. But what I'm talking about is the problem, and you just rightly identified the solution. So I know companies that hire millennials, and millennials tend to stay. And you're right, it comes right down to that in terms of the brand culture and the purpose that they imbibe in these millennials. But that's the solution. And I was just identifying the problem. And I also come from a lens of banking, where it's a very incestuous industry. So my view is a bit skewed on that front.
I love you guys. We're getting it all out there today.
Can I dive in there? I would also say, it kind of depends on where you are. So where we are as a startup is we're just kind of coalescing this new vision of what we're doing in the world, right? So it's like we're having these new people come in, and we're including them and helping us create this vision. And I think that's important too, that if we say to the millennials, we value what your perspective is, and certainly in virtual and augmented reality, we value their perspective, right? How do they see the future happening? And I think that's a really good way, at least in a startup where we can't offer, some of the other benefits that a larger company can offer. We can say to them, look, okay, we can't offer you these huge paychecks, but we can say to you, you can be a part of our vision. Your vision, essential part of our vision. We are just now crafting this new technology, this new market. Come work with us and be a part of this vision. Don't let me just determine the vision. I want your vision to be part of this whole vision. Yeah. So I think that actually helps too, with the millennials feeling empowered to be part of the drivers in what we're doing.
Very well said. Thank you, Jody. Anirban, this next question goes to you based on what all your awesome co-panelists have been saying. What advice would you give to someone going to a leadership position for the first time?
I said this the first time around, Alysia, and I will reiterate it. Delegate. Learn to delegate and empower your team members, your subordinates, to actually go out there and run with it. You got to define the goals. You have to also describe how these goals and milestones actually map to the ultimate vision or the grand problem that the company is trying to solve. But once you've created that, you should allow your team to run with it and give them the freedom to work towards those goals. I think that's the most important thing in my view, for that, in terms of becoming sort of graduating to a leadership status, so to speak.
So on that note, Anirban, I got a very quick question that just came from the community specifically for you, and it goes to all your co-panelists as well. It goes, Anirban, what is one mistake you witness regularly that leaders make more frequently than any others?
I think a lot of leaders, and again, depends on how you define a leader. If you're talking about a true leader, they wouldn't be making this mistake. But a lot of people in leadership positions actually tend to think that they tend to have a sense of entitlement. And this was alluded to before. I believe it was Sean that brought this up, that, you can't really impose, particularly in our generation, in our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation, perhaps hierarchy automatically commanded respect, right? You were in a certain position in the org structure of the company, and by virtue of where you were, you commanded respect. But that's changed, and I think organizations are much flatter, structures are more horizontal, and because of the inherent scope for attrition that we alluded to before, because of the great diversity and opportunity available today in our economies, I think it's very, very important that you don't keep people, you make people, or you don't rely on your position in the organization to actually command respect, but you actually earn that respect. And so for anybody who is in a leadership position, I would say avoid at all costs imposing your authority by virtue of your position. You are also contributing to the team's efforts. And I think you need to be viewed, and you need to position yourself as an enabler, right? Somebody who enables the team to actually achieve their goals, as opposed to somebody who directs them. You can't look at this as an army, even though I know Sean alluded to the term lieutenants before, but I keep saying that, this is not really a militaristic sort of organizational structure anymore. It's very, very flat.
Thank you, Anirban. Sanjay, do you want to add anything in terms of what Anirban was saying in terms of mistakes leaders have frequently make that you've seen that we could improve on?
Yeah, let me touch upon the tech space specifically, where I know it's a very hot topic, and in terms of everybody would like to, become the CEO tomorrow, coming out of a college or whatever it is. I think becoming a founder or a CEO or a managing director of a company, I think it comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think coming at that position also requires a right attitude. So I think the word boss in itself should be abolished from the dictionary. Yeah, I think word boss means simply that, like Anirban said, it's like because of your organizational hierarchy, you are, everybody should listen to you. I think that's absolutely incorrect. And I think that's where, you're leading by example, or all these thoughts which everybody have shared earlier is absolutely critical to ensure that, and what happens, especially in the tech space, I'll be precise here, that the founders, especially who come from, universities, may it MIT, may it Harvard, may the IITs of the world, and that's what they make the biggest mistake. They think they are best in possibly a tech field, but doesn't mean they're the right, good leaders. So they have to really lead by example, getting their hands dirty, and that will gain them respect. And I think that's the mistake I see made by most of the tech founders, that they just feel very bossy, and that will not bring a good culture, and everything else will follow, whether it's attrition of the company, whether it's the product roadmap not right. And of course, these are the things I've said. And just second thing I would add is, people just do not focus on sales. You can wait for the product to become perfect. Don't let the sales wait. So focus on sales as well.
Said as a true entrepreneur.
If I could just quickly interject.
Can I interject as well? Oh, wait. Hold on, okay.
Anirban, and then Sean.
Yes.
Anirban, go for it, and then Sean.
I'll make it quick, Sean. I think I think Sanjay alluded to this. I think one of the things we all forget to do in a startup, because we're so focused on results and metrics and fundraising, is we forget to create that culture. And actually, cultures sometimes, yes, they do develop organically, but you have to mold it. You have to create the mold for that culture. And I think one of the things leaders don't focus or don't emphasize at all, is actually creating that culture. They don't pay attention to culture. But actually, culture really is the true competitive advantage. IP, intellectual property, whatever you develop ultimately comes from having the right minds, right? And those minds are mobile. And this is a free labor market. And so ultimately, your only true lasting competitive advantage is your corporate culture. And this is where companies like McKinsey have succeeded in continuing to attract the best for decades now. So that's my 2 cents.
Anirban, before Sean says anything, thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, because there's a company that I'm sure everybody is aware of that's one of the biggest disruptors in the world, huge company that basically never focused enough on its company culture, and we've all seen how that's a very sad story is going to keep going. Jody, I'm sure you'd love to touch on that. Sean, so thank you, Anirban, for touching on that. Sean, please add your thoughts here.
Okay, so I was listening to Sanjay and I completely agree with him. So everything is about culture. So a lot of you guys are based in SV. It's a very different culture. I built a culture with my staff where I do something very simple. Every Friday, I take them for lunch. Okay, I pay for it. Done deal. Okay. Now, there's disruptive culture in terms of get rid of the people that don't buy into your culture. So they don't buy in, goodbye. But there's the problem is this, and I'm sure all you guys are aware of it. There's a thing called 10x. When you find the guys that are 10x, you hang on to them for dear life, because these guys replace 10 people. The second problem that founders have is you tend to kind of fabricate around what you know. So let's understand tech. What about the admin? What about the fiscal? What about all the rest of the crap that goes on around it? And what Sanjay said is correct. You find the right people to actually manage that for you, and you just leave it alone. Say, thank you, you go manage that, because it allows you to focus on what you want to focus with. I'm not a born accountant. Okay, I'm not a born solicitor. I understand it, but find someone else to do it. Very simple as founders.
And that is why he joined us today, everybody, because once upon a time, he mentored me, and today we have the fireside chat. So thank you, Sean. Jody, do you want to add anything? I hope we never lost Jody. Jody, are you with us?
No, I'm sorry. No. Yeah, I wonder if maybe now is the time to sort of interject what the differences might be between a female founder and a male founder.
We're right for disruption, Jody. Go for it.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say, I actually think the biggest difference is, we talk about sort of temperament and sort of keeping your cool. And I think, at least from my experience, the challenge is that the stresses are higher on a female founder, much higher than on a male founder. I know that might sound like, well, no, I know I have a lot of stuff, but at the beginning of my entrance into this field, I actually started a group called AR/VR Women, for women in the industry. And I started speaking out about some of the stuff that was going on that just made no sense to me. And I'm not even going to go into what it was. It made no sense. And I said, why is this happening? This makes no sense. And I got I got an email from a prominent other female in this not exactly this industry, but sort of the foundational industry. And she said to me, Jody, I don't speak up for a reason. And she sent me an article about all these women that had their lives threatened for speaking up. And she said, I have children, and I only speak a certain amount because I don't want to risk my life. I don't want to risk the lives of my children. Now, I don't know how much of a risk my life is at by just saying, hey, this is ridiculous. And honestly, like, this is a new industry. It's not exactly the industry that she was in, but I can't tell you how, like, as I've gone down the line, as I keep speaking up or as I do anything, like, in the back of my mind is always like, well, is there a risk that I'm just going to, like, lose my business, or is there a risk that I actually and I just don't know. I don't know where that line is. And so I think that just sort of unconsciously adds to my stress at every point. And there's just a level of fear I think these kinds of stories get back channeled, or like when someone spoke out and then they were just kicked out of their job, or or there's like a lawsuit now because of, I think the men don't quite understand that just by having to navigate like really bizarre, I mean, it's bizarre what to think about that, like, your life might be threatened because you said, hey, what are you doing here? Like, why not have, and I think that the level of stress that this adds to our lives and sort of what we're doing, I don't think that's quite as seen or as known as it should be.
Thank you, Jody. And to all the women entrepreneurs in our community around the globe, I'm going to invite Jody back because there's a lot of stuff she's touched on, which is critically important. Now, I know we're running out of time. I know everyone's having the time of their lives. My favorite part of every investor session is we get to ask our VIPs, what excites you in 2017 and what industries are ripe for disruption? So starting with Sanjay, as quickly as possible, please tell us what excites you and what industries are ripe for disruption in your opinion.
I think everybody's talking about that industry. It's anything to do with automation and anything with regards to artificial intelligence, and IoT is the industry which I'm keeping high hopes on. And when it comes to emerging markets, anything to do with fintech would be a boom, and that's the two industry I'm looking at right now.
Awesome, thank you, Anirban. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I have an obvious bias here. It's healthcare. I think healthcare is ripe for disruption for the simple reason that it's been a massive laggard in terms of adoption of technology, and in particular. Medicine is an empirical science which lends itself very well to artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think perhaps this won't happen in 2017, but you might start seeing the beginning of the obsolescence of the internal medicine doctor, because essentially all of this basic medical work, primary care, is going to start being delivered by clinical decision support systems, which are all powered by artificial intelligence.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. And let's hear from Jude. Jude, what industries are ripe for disruption? What excites you as a young investor in 2017?
Yeah, I also have an obvious bias around Africa when you talk about 2017 and what's exciting. I think fintech, just to buttress the point that was made earlier, is definitely ripe for disruption in Africa. We're looking at things in my bank and externally, like mobile money and how to reach the last mile and create sustainability within the financial ecosystem, as well as promoting financial inclusion. So for me, that's ripe for disruption. And you can look at a case study in Kenya where they created Emma Kiba, which essentially is the world's first mobile phone bond. You can literally just buy government T-bills straight from and very non-smartphone. So that industry is also very ripe for disruption. I think one final point I add is around manufacturing as it relates to sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at the world population come 2050, over 50% of the world's youth population will be in India and Africa. Now, who's going to be doing the world's manufacturing? I think when it comes to Africa, manufacturing is definitely high on the cards, and I think it's ripe for automation, is ripe for disruption, and I'm very encouraged by the recent administration in Ghana that's taken the policy to implement one factory in one region across Ghana. And I think I'll end it there. That's where I see the excitement going forward.
Thank you, Jude. I know we're running out of time. We still want to get our experts to give us their tweet piece of advice. But Jody, please tell us what excites you and what industries are ripe for disruption. Who's Jody?
Obviously, I'm also biased here, and I'm going to say marketing and advertising. I think we're living in a world right now that's based on the idea that people want to be interrupted while they're going about their lives with some piece of content. And so our idea is that we could create targeted, personalized advertising campaigns that can literally be wherever you want them to be in the world and are contextual. So, for example, you go into the supermarket and you think, well, what was that drink I wanted to see? And you can take your phone and you can look up, and there's like a piece of content or an ad or a commercial or some kind of thing. Oh yeah, there's the drink I wanted to see. So we can use augmented reality to contextualize, personalized advertising and content wherever people go, where they want to see them, and where they might even be.
Sorry, Jody. Sorry, we're just running out of time. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I know everyone wants to learn from you guys. Sean, as quickly as you can, please tell us what excites you in 2017 and what industries are ripe for disruption.
As Judy says, Africa's exciting. So we're running out of time, so I'll say one thing in the word of Richard Branson. Screw it, just do it.
And what industries are ripe for disruption? Our entrepreneurs want to know, and you're one of the best. Come on, share,
All
Sean.
fintech. Anything, as Jody said, as fintech comes, off we go. Can't go wrong.
Thank you, Sean. So now we're going to ask our VIPs to prepare their tweet piece of advice. And while they do that, thank you to everyone for an absolutely amazing session. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves as much as I did. Just to keep you posted on our upcoming sessions with some of the world's best joining us again as VIP guests. This coming Wednesday, we have a very cool session planned, and it's around the challenges of tomorrow. What do we as entrepreneurs do to prepare ourselves? Where to from here? Definitely one you don't want to miss. Remember to keep us up to date on all your progress and exciting news. We love hearing from you, and we love highlighting your success. And our VIPs love hearing that you're succeeding. You can drop us an email to inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com. And we do love hearing from you. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find our VIPs on LinkedIn. You can find our champions on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with us and tell us all the things that are happening in your lives, in your businesses. We love helping you in any way that we can, and networking is the future. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this session, feel free to share the invitation with any entrepreneurs in your community. We want to reach 100 countries, and we know that with your help, we can make this dream come true. It's also a way of saying thank you to our VIP guests for all their kindness and generosity. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, the tweet piece of advice from each of our VIPs, starting with Sanjay. Sanjay, please give us your tweet piece of advice.
Hi guys, thank you for today. My advice is simple: lead by example, delegate with proper accountability, and grow your organization.
Absolutely beautifully said. I hope everyone wrote that down. Anirban, please go for it.
Sure, Alysia. I would say entrepreneurship is long, and it's a long and daunting journey. Celebrate the small victories.
Absolutely beautifully said. Jody, please give us your tweet piece of advice.
First, know thyself, and then know your employees.
Absolutely brilliant. Jude, I know you're a very inspiring orator. Please give us your tweet piece of advice.
Thank you. I'll borrow the words of an entrepreneur friend of mine who said, entrepreneurship is like giving birth through your nostrils. Impossible is nothing. Never give up. If people have done it, you can do it. And that's my advice.
And all the time I've been asking VIPs to share that one. You officially just took the cake, Jude. So well done.
Took it to the next level.
We should have begun with that. That would have been a good beginning.
I told you he's a good orator. Well done, Jude. Sean, please give us yours. That one's going to be a hard one to beat.
The words of Richard Branson, screw it, just do it.
A very, very, very good piece of advice, and I know we could all look up to Richard Branson.
I'm going to have to phone Jude after this because that's...
I told you he's a young rock star, and he delivered.
Sorry, excuse me.
My tweet piece of advice is be grateful. We are incredibly privileged to be entrepreneurs. We're incredibly privileged to be able to build our dreams, learn from the best. We couldn't do it without our friends and family. And we may be living in a very exciting but very challenging world. So never forget how privileged you are. Help other entrepreneurs, empower other entrepreneurs. One of those entrepreneurs is on the call with us today. He helped me become who I am today. So don't forget to keep giving back. Thank you to everyone for all the amazing things you're doing. Thank you to our VIP guests. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask our VIPs to shout bye. So remember, keep hustling. Never, ever, ever give up. And we will see you on Wednesday on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Take care. Bye.